Hello, my friends. How are you doing today? I hope it's a great one. I am so excited to share with you some dialogue, description, and details. These three big D's are going to take your great story to the level of fantastic. So let's just talk briefly about each of them, okay? Dialogue is conversation, right? It's the conversation that goes on between a couple of your characters. It's set off with quotation marks. It is a complete sentence within a sentence most of the time. So you'll see I've got a capital, I've got my punctuation inside. I am setting it off by who said it. That's called the tagline. And then the dialogue is the actual set of words spoken by that person. Now, I have a handout for you that's going to make it so easy for you to refer back and just check that you're doing it correctly. But I highly recommend you to add some dialogue into your story. And by the way, you have a constant cheat sheet near you pretty much all the time. I bet right now, if you looked around, you could find the cheat sheet that's going to always help you master dialogue. That would be a chapter book or a novel. You probably have one not too far out of reach. You can always refer to those to make sure that your dialogue is looking good. The other thing I want you to add is some description. Now, specifically in stories, sensory description works the best. Think about your five senses: seeing, hearing, tasting, feeling, and smelling. You can add those in all throughout your story, one of each, two of each, it's up to you. But when you do, you start to paint a picture in our mind's movie area. We can just see your story come to life. Look at this one. A student wrote this years ago, and I love it. Immediately, I rushed over to our little red car, stuffed my bag into the cramped trunk, and waited for my parents. In this one sentence, the author did a great job of telling me that it was a hurried time, that she was probably the last to get that bag in because the trunk was already cramped. And there she is waiting for her parents, who must also be running late. One sentence, excellent sensory description. How about this one? Soon we could hear the nearing helicopter and were notified to shoot the flares. Amidst the loud roaring wind of the helicopter, 3 rangers in a cage-like apparatus were lowered. I love this sentence. I can almost hear that wind and that loudness that a helicopter would bring. I can picture 3 rangers in green uniforms. She didn't even say that, but that's what I picture with rangers. And I don't know what the cage-like apparatus is, but I'm so curious and I can picture it coming down toward the ground. How about this one? As we looked out over the majestic Grand Canyon at the beginning of the long trail ahead of us, the north rim was slowly illuminated by the rising morning sun. Wow. Okay. Love it because I know where they are. I know it must look magnificent. I know these are people who are a group of some sort. They probably have backpacks on and water bottles are filled. They've got a long trail ahead of them. And it must be early in the morning. And I can just picture that sun going from shadow to light along the north rim of the canyon. It's a beautiful picture. And it was done in my brain with one sentence. That's the power of sensory description. So be sure to add that into your story. Now, I have the beginning, middle, and end of a story that I wrote as an example for this Grand Canyon assignment. So feel free to pause this and go through the beginning. Take a look. How did I use dialogue? Can you find the sensory descriptive words and sentences? Then go here to the middle, pause again, and read it through. Finally, take a look at the ending. Is there more dialogue? Is there more description? You tell me. Now, before I go, there's a couple other things I still have to make sure you're doing. Are you using transition words and phrases to connect your sentences? I hope so. I like to think of transition words as this piece of the bridge that connects two sides, and it makes for a much smoother travel. Imagine not having it. How would we get from here to there? No, we want some strong transition words to connect our thoughts. So here on this side, I have, we put on our beanies. And here on this side, I have the temperature was 35 degrees. Those are fine sentences all by themselves. But if I could add in a word or a phrase to connect them, it might run and sound more smooth. Listen, we put on our beanies. After all, the temperature was 35 degrees. See how it connects them? That's the power of good transition words. So I want you to go look at your story and see, did you use some good transitions? Lastly, I have to talk to you about using figurative language. Now, figurative is the opposite of literal, right? If something is literal, it's exactly meaning just what it means. But figurative is saying, I'm going to compare a couple things, or I'm going to use sentences and words that really aren't literal, they aren't true, but they paint a picture. And similes and metaphors are great at this. So similes compare two things, but that uses the words like or as, whereas metaphors also compare two things, but do not use like or as. So for example, her smile was as bright as the sun. Now, am I being literal? No, we'd all be blind. But can you picture she had a beautiful smile? And I used as to compare her bright smile to the sun. Now, if I wanted to make that a metaphor, I'd have to take that out and I would just say her smile was the sun. It still gives you this picture of, wow, it must have been so bright, right? But by not using those, I can switch a simile into a metaphor. Let's look at the metaphor. Still comparing two things, this lake and how it looks like glass. The lake was glass. You can picture it, right? It must be still and smooth and reflective. I could turn it into a simile and say the lake was as smooth as glass, but I could also keep it a metaphor and just say it was glass. So I want you to play around with that. I want to see what you could come up with. I'm sure you're going to come up with something great to take your story to the next great big level that it's going to be. And I am happy for you. All right, let's go practice some more. I think you've got some great ways that you can add in dialogue, description, and details. Let's do this.